Mesdames
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I welcome you to this annual meeting of shareholders of Bombardier. And I also welcome with pleasure all the participants who are watching us on the website of Bombardier. I ask you to turn off your mobile phones and all other electronic devices right now and for the duration of this meeting.
good morning. I welcome you to this annual meeting of shareholders of Bombardier. I also welcome all the participants who are watching us on the website of Bombardier. I ask you to turn off your mobile phones and all other electronic devices right now for the duration of this meeting. Notre assemblée se déroulera en français.
Our meeting will be conducted in French, and a simultaneous English translation service is available. If you have not already done so, I invite you now to get a simultaneous translation device from our attendants. For the participants watching our meeting on our website, a simultaneous English translation is also available.
Our meeting will be conducted in French. A simultaneous English translation service is available if you have not already done so. I invite you to now get a simultaneous translation device from our attendants. For the participants watching our meeting on our website, a simultaneous English translation is also available.
So allow me to introduce the people who will assist me during this meeting. To my extreme left, Mr. André Navarri, President and Chief Operating Officer of Bombardier Transport, and Maître Roger Carl, Secretary of the company. And to my extreme right, Mr. Guy Hachet, President and Chief Operating Officer of Bombardier Aéronautique, Mr. Pierre Allary, Senior VP and Chief Financial Officer, and Pierre Baudouin, President and Chief Executive Officer for Bombardier. So I will act as president of this meeting, and Maître Carl will act as secretary. I have in front of me a copy of the notice of meeting and related documents addressed to shareholders, as well as an affidavit from Maître Carl confirming their mailing. And I would like you to, I will ask him to please include these files in the files of the meeting. So I'd like to highlight the fact that this annual meeting of shareholders has been called to deal with questions specified on the notice. Mr. Steve Gilbert and Madame Sonia Chiaviglia of Computer Share Investor Services will act as election supervisors for this assembly. And according to the report that they've given us before this assembly or this meeting, they have confirmed that we will have quorum with regards to Class A shareholders, multiple voting rights, and holders of Class B shareholders, limited voting rights. I will ask, therefore, Maître Carl to include their report into the files of this meeting, and I will therefore declare this annual assembly of shareholders of Bombardier as being duly called and constituted. Now, we are introducing this year a new process to deal with the vote of shareholders that are present at this meeting, or to proxy holders on questions that are issued, or to issues that will be called upon to vote. Now, it will be possible for the first time this year for all shareholders and proxy holders duly nominated to vote electronically at the meeting. Consequently, the vote on each and all propositions and motions will be done electronically, and this will accelerate the voting process during the meeting and will present the result of the vote on the screen during the assembly. And this way, we will no longer have to have a show of hand vote. So I'd like to invite Maître Carl to go over the modalities of this electronic voting system. Thank you, Mr. Baudouin, and those who among you are either registered shareholders or proxy holders eligible to vote have noticed during their registration before the beginning of this meeting that we've given them an electronic device, portable electronic device, and a smart card that has been personalized and which holds information relevant to all the shares, giving them right to participate to the electronic voting system. Now, please make sure that the arrows at the bottom of the card are facing you and that the card has been inserted into the device up to the red line. If you have properly done this operation, then a welcome message should appear on the screen of your device. And if you hold more than or represent more than one account, the card that has been given to you holds all relevant information for all of your accounts. After the presentation of each of the following propositions dealing with the election of directors of Bombardier, on nomination of Ernst & Young as external auditors of Bombardier, on the adoption of the non-binding consultative resolution, the approach of Bombardier with regards to the remuneration of its upper management, and on the three propositions from the MEDAC group, you will be invited to vote by pressing or clicking on one of the three buttons of the dial, numbered 1, 2, or 3, so as to indicate your preference. When we will hold the vote, the device will display, according to the proposition in front of us, one or the other of the voting actions, for, against, or abstention. In order to vote, you will need to press on the appropriate button, according to the proposition which is being presented. And so to vote for, press on button 1. To vote against, press on button 2. And to abstain, press on button 3. Once you have voted, the word accepted will be displayed on your screen to indicate that your vote has been counted. If you wish to change your vote, you will have to press once again on the appropriate button, thereby reflecting your new choice. The last button on which you will have pressed before closing of the poll will be accepted by the system. All votes represented by shareholders or proxy holders that are eligible to vote during the assembly will be taken into account and added to the votes received by proxy, and the final result will be presented on the screen immediately after the vote on each proposition. If you have already voted by proxy before this meeting, you do not need to vote again, since your vote has already been taken into account in the total of proxies received to date. However, you are allowed to modify your decision by voting during the meeting with the electronic device, and in this manner your new vote will replace your initial proxy vote. And so that you could be all totally comfortable with this new electronic voting system, we will have a practice vote. Are you ready? Please vote on the following proposition. Canada will win more medals at the Olympic Games, the ones in London, than the ones in Beijing. Now, please vote. Press on button 1 if you are in favor, if you agree. Press 2 if you disagree. Press on button 3 if you wish to abstain. As long as the vote is not completed, you may change your choice. And finally, we invite you to vote. The vote is now closed, and the results appear on the screen behind me. Aha. Thank you, Roger. I now would like to present the consolidated financial statements of Bombardier for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2011. The report of external auditors on these financial statements, as well as, thirdly, the shareholders' annual report. The Bombardier fiscal period corresponds to the civil year as of January 1st, 2012. However, according to the documents sent to the shareholders, I will allow Maître Carl to dispense with the reading of these financial statements, but I've asked him to include them in the files of this meeting. And we will now move on to the election of directors from Bombardier. Management of Bombardier would ask you to vote for 15 directors. You have become aware on pages 7 to 21 of the 2012 circular of a short biography, as well as various other information on each of these people. Madame Janine Bombardier will leave the board today, a board which she joined the 18th of June 1984. And in your name and on behalf of all her colleagues on the board, I would like to thank her for her precious collaboration. Thank you. Madame Joanne Bissonnette and Madame Sheila Fraser, who are both new candidates, will join the 13 present directors whose candidacy is being submitted for election purposes. May I now have a proposition for the election of these 15 candidates? Mr. President, my name is Sylvain Bergeron. I'm shareholder of Bombardier. I now move that each of the following 15 people be elected director of Bombardier until the next general meeting of shareholders of the company, or until election of nominating of their successor. Laurent Baudouin, Pierre Baudouin, André Perard, Joanne Bissonnette, J.R. Armand Bombardier, Martha Finbrooks, L. Denis Deshôtels, Thierry Desmarais, Jean-Louis Fontaine, Sheila Fraser, Daniel Johnson, Jean C. Monti, Carlos E. Represas, Jean-Pierre Rousseau, Heinrich Weiss. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to second this motion? Mr. President, my name is Martin Carrier. I'm a shareholder of Bombardier, and I second this motion. Fine. Proposition have been duly presented and seconded. We will now proceed with the electronic vote. You need to vote for each of the 15 candidates proposed to the position of director, and I will ask Maître Carl to proceed with the vote. As Mr. Baudouin has mentioned, you need to vote for each of the 15 candidates according to the modalities that I've explained earlier. The name of the 15 candidates will appear on the screen behind me. Every time the name of a candidate appears on the screen, it will be you'll be called upon to vote on button 1 if you wish to vote in favor of the candidate, or on button 3 if you want to abstain from voting. So we will now start the vote. The vote is open for Mr. Laurent Baudouin. The vote is now closed. The vote is open for Mr. Pierre Baudouin. The vote is now closed. The vote is now open for Mr. André Bérard. The vote is now closed. The vote is now open for Madame Joanne Bissonnette. Voting is now closed. Voting is open for Monsieur J.R. Bombardier. Voting is now over. Voting is open for Madame Martha Finn Brooks. Voting is now closed. The vote is open for Mr. Denis Deshotels. The vote is now closed. Voting is now open for Mr. Thierry Desmarais. Voting is now closed. Voting is opened for Mr. Jean-Louis Fontaine. The vote is now closed. Vote is open for Madame Sheila Fraser. Voting is now closed. Voting is open for Mr. Daniel Johnson. Voting is now closed. Voting is open for Mr. Jean Monty. Voting is now closed. Voting is open for Mr. Carlos Represas. Voting is now closed. Voting is open for Mr. Jean-Pierre Rousseau. Voting is now closed. And voting is open for Mr. Heinrich Weiss. Voting is now closed. Here then are the results of the vote with regard to the election of each of the 15 candidates proposed to the position of director. I would like to congratulate each of the 15 directors that you have now elected. And I would also like to thank each of the 13 directors already in position for their contribution and their enlightened advice that have enabled Bombardier to continue to show its leadership in today's difficult environment. And as well to perform its activities in the world of mobility, in the world of sustainable growth, long-term growth, offering combination without comparison, both on Earth and in the skies. I equally would like to welcome Madame Joanne Bissonnette and Sheila Fraser within the Board of Directors. We'll now proceed with the nomination of external auditors for Bombardier for the present financial period. You need also to authorize the board to establish their remuneration. The board of directors as well as management of Bombardier recommend a nomination once again of Ernst & Young chartered accountants as external auditors from Bombardier. That mandate will end at the end of the next General Assembly or Annual Assembly of Shareholders for the company. Can I have a motion to that effect? Mr. President, my name is Chantal Carrier. I'm shareholder of Bombardier, and I suggest nominating Ernst & Young, external auditors of Bombardier, for the present financial period until the closing of the next general meeting of shareholders of the company, and that the board be enabled to or authorized to establish their remuneration. Would anyone like to second this motion? Mr. President, my name is Roxane Marcil. I am shareholder of Bombardier, and I second this proposition. Thank you. The proposition has been duly presented and seconded. You now need to vote on the nomination of Ernst & Young as external auditors for Bombardier. And I will ask Maitre Cal to now proceed with the vote. So the modalities for the electronic vote are the same as previously. You need to press on button 1 if you wish to vote in favor of the nomination of Ernst & Young as external auditors for Bombardier, or on button 3 if you prefer to abstain. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Here are the results. So in light of these results, I congratulate Ernst & Young for the renewal of the mandate that you have given them and the trust as well that you have shown them. Now, on the agenda, we have possibility for shareholders or proxy holders have the ability to vote on a non-binding presentation or resolution with regards to remuneration of the upper management team, and you can follow this on page 15 of the circular. As explained more amply under section 4 of the circular on pages 22 to 54, the approach adopted by Bombardier with regards to remuneration of its upper management aims at maximizing the performance of the company by favoring appropriate performance of its members. The policy of remuneration of members of upper management has as an objective to recruit, maintain in function, and motivate members of upper management so as to improve the performance of the company and to increase the value for the shareholders, which has as an effect to support the commitment of Bombardier with regards to remuneration with regards to performance. And so the policy for remuneration of members of upper management Bombardier emphasizes global remuneration, salary, basic salary, short-term, medium, and long-term incentives, retirement plans, and social benefits and accessories. The company has as principle to position the global remuneration of its upper management members at a medium point, 50 percentile points, comparatively to similar positions with companies having international activities of the size and complexity comparable to those of Bombardier on relevant markets. So I'd like to remind you that given that we are talking about a consulting resolution, the results of the vote will not bind the board of directors of Bombardier. However, the members of the Human Resources Committee and of the remuneration will take that into account while examining in the future the principles, policies, and programs or arrangements that deal with the remuneration of members of upper management. The board of directors of Bombardier recommends as shareholders or proxy holders to vote for the adoption of this resolution. And so before moving on to the vote, I would like to invite you to share any comments you may have. Mr. President, my name is Willie Gagnon. I act on behalf of MEDAC. I would like to read a brief comment. Is it possible to have some light behind me? I have a hard time reading my sheets. Please, if possible. For a shareholder who's retired, minority shareholder who would expect to have fixed income from an investment in Class A shares, for example, who would have bought shares May 30th, 2011, we would have paid 30 and 10, and these shares are now at 15 and 55, which is a loss of $3.55 or 18% since their acquisition less than a year ago. It will be almost impossible to recoup this loss with a yield of 4% interest. The evolution of these Class B shares accessible on the market are just as disappointing, and therefore it is important to see what is going wrong. On page 154 of your financial statements, for total shares of $23.9 billion, there's only $661 million of capital for a report of 2.8%. And for such a ratio, the company would be considered technically bankrupt a long time ago. Furthermore, the ratio of capital does not stop growing for 3 years. The last 3 years, going from 4.4% in 2008 to 8% today. With such results on Class A shares of the company, there's certainly no justification rationally for any bonuses whatsoever for upper management in 2011, especially that if we calculate that since January 2nd, 2009, shares that were at $4.72 in December 2011 was at $4.06, going down. Now, a deficit also of participation to the employee retirement plan. This deficit is at $3.2 billion, according to financial statements. 28% of the company's debts. The company only has assets of limited amounts as well. And so there are Bombardier employees in the room. They will certainly not be satisfied with management and would vote against the salary policy of their directors. And I would let you know that these retirement plans at the banks don't show any such deficit. And very similar retirement plans at that. Now, a little comment on the comparison group that you have chosen to justify your salaries. Now here we're talking about the 4 best paid directors, excluding Mr. Navarri. Out of the 25 multinational companies appearing on notice of meeting, there are 6 here that we have looked at in order to compare the evolution of their shares between 2007 to 2011. The results obtained, now we've chosen 6 companies at random, 2 in the field of aerospace, 1 in electronic, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, Parker, and General Dynamic, and United Technology. So it is completely, some of these companies increase the value of their shares, others diminish. Some go down 25%, some increase 20%. So the group that you're comparing yourselves to, at the end of the day, is a zero-line gain. With regards to the value of shares, in all cases, the value of the shares chosen is almost 20 times superior to the Bombardier shares at $4.06, which for the same period of time has dropped by 40%, 4.64 or in 2007. How then can you justify this choice of companies in order to analyze the salaries of upper management? What has led to the choice of these companies that are 20 times, they're capitalized 20 times that we are? It's strictly nothing to do with the yield and the performance. Now, the quality of the statements, the value of the shares, or even the dividends attributed. It is high time for shareholders to wake up. It's high time for shareholders to realize that we need to exercise a lot of caution before investing in Bombardier, and to not reward management for such poor results. The only person who should have a premium for this company on the stock exchange, responsible for communications, who can sell us this idea in spite of a very poor performance. Thank you for your comments. I think we will now proceed with a vote on this proposal or proposition. Shall we move with one other comment? For the motion, my name is Daniel Bureau. I'm shareholder of Bombardier. I propose the adoption of the resolution non-binding with regards to the remuneration of upper management of Bombardier, with regards to page 15 of the notice of meeting. Would anybody like to second that? Mr. President, my name is Patrice Aronovici. I'm shareholder of Bombardier, and I second this proposition. The proposition has been duly made and seconded. We'll ask Maître Cal to hold the electronic vote. So I would invite you to vote on the non-binding resolution with regards to remuneration of members of upper management by pressing on button 1 if you are in favor, or on button 2 if you are against. The voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Here are the results. I realize that a majority of votes are in favor of this resolution. It is therefore adopted. And now we will examine the three propositions submitted by the MÉDAC group. The full text of these propositions are to be found in the circular pages 65 to 67. Now, the board of directors of Bombardier will recommend to reject each of those three shareholder propositions for the reasons stated for each one of those at supplement A of the circular on pages 65 to 67. As you may have become aware, before this meeting, it is not necessary to have a reading of it. And so I will invite the representative of MÉDAC to briefly present their observations and to present a motion relative to the three propositions together, so that we may then have a vote held by closed ballot. Thank you. If I may use the time that is given to me as a MÉDAC representative. Well, it deals with the three propositions? Yes, certainly. I will simply read them to you since I don't have the eloquence of our founder, Mr. Michaud. The first proposition, true performance of managers and purchase power. This formula has led to the increase of the value of the shares, which gave the right to purchase shares purchase determined in advance, but the purchase itself is only after a waiting period. Now, this is the difference between the exercise and the actual value of the share at the end of the year. So we want to align the interest to that of shareholders and to make them more loyal. Now, this approach is for granted that this approach is aligned with what's recognized in stock markets. Now, there are many factors here that are not controlled by upper management, such as interest rates or inflation. And if the study done by Professor Magnan that shows that between 1998 and 2008, 90% of the 5 major Canadian banks, or we can presume it's the same thing in other areas, sectors, are expressed by the banking sector, as opposed to your sector, as low interest rates and a favorable economic context. So to bind or to connect the purchase of shares solely to performance on stock markets is far from being appropriate, since this part these shares can have an impact. We will therefore propose that these shares cannot be made available until a measurable objective can be reached and quantifiable as the growth of revenue per share, the yield on shareholder on shares, and the role of the different participants made available by the committees.
That we find on page 42 of the circular. We observe at the end of the line devoted to each member of this August group that since January 31st, 2010, in other words, the end of 2009, the salary of Mr. Baudouin went from $3 million. Wait a second, there are a lot of numbers there. $3,905,600 to December 31st, 2011, $8,169,900. So that's an increase of 109%. Pierre Allary has an increase of 114%. Mr. Haché, 98%. That's what, 3 years, 2 years? Well, whatever. The average wage in Canada since 1997 increased by 4.3%. So increases of 109, 115, 100%. I don't know. That's a bit difficult to accept, and the MEDAC feels as I do. Maybe I will allow my colleague, Fernand Dalou, speak to the second motion, so you'll be hearing someone else. Second motion. It's fairly dark in here. At least I'm in the dark because of that spotlight in front of me. Well, no matter. I'm representing the MEDAC here, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders and members of management. I am going to read this motion on the remuneration based on performance. The Globe and Mail published in May 2011 a study highlighting the financial performance and the compensation package of the companies with the highest increase compared to similar companies. In other words, this tool compares the rank of the benefits of the highest paid manager of a company and that of its financial performance compared to a group of similar companies. The shareholder can therefore make up his mind about the fact if the wages of the manager of an organization is adequate considering the financial performance of the company he manages. We propose that a similar comparison be presented for the highest manager and 4 most paid managers of a company. The indicators used to calculate the performance of the organization should be elements on which decisions of managers can have an impact. Variable remuneration is or should be the greatest part of the pay package of all managers. The shareholder should be able to evaluate if this variable remuneration is justified considering the financial performance and extra financial performance of the company. Mr. Chairman, I won't have a very long speech. It is not the proper place. But I would like to encourage us all, and you, members of this board of this company, who benefit from the company and its members, you have a tremendous amount of prestige. I'll talk about that later when I will make a comment with regards to the franchisation problems. But we know we're here in Quebec. The subway has been blocked, so without no doubt, or maybe partially blocked, and that explains that a lot of people have arrived late and may not even be here yet. I'm not going to talk about the subway and the carriages that carry people. No, that's besides the point. I want to talk about that tension that exists in our society for some time now with these young people that are demonstrating everywhere. I won't talk about the problem of the tuition increases. This is not the place, and it is not my subject. But I would like that together we would think about the exorbitant remuneration that we find in many economic sectors here in Quebec, in Canada, and everywhere, of these salaries that are shockingly high. And I'm really choosing my words here. You know, people are wondering how come a chairman, a manager of a company like Bombardier, you do the math, you've got the tools to do the math, can earn on average $20,000 a day. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. I've calculated over a 6-day week, $20,000 a day. Whereas a salaried employee in Quebec earning minimum wage at $10 an hour, when he works 2,000 hours, correct me once again if I'm wrong, that comes to $20,000 a year. In a case, we're paid for one day $20,000 or $25,000, and there are some who make even more than that, call it better or worse. There are higher amounts in other companies, but nevertheless, I don't want to dwell on this, but these compensation packages are exorbitant. And we see them just about everywhere. They are starting to create a phenomenon within our society of disapproval. And you have to listen to the noise made by this disapproval that can manifest itself with more strength eventually and may cause some earthquakes that no one wishes. So in our motions from MEDAC, this is what we are repeating. The compensation packages that are exorbitant. We don't doubt people's competency. We repeat that everywhere. Of those who have your tasks and those who work with you in these boards of directors. I smiled a bit when I read other motions because we say that people with you at the boards of directors are independent. Yes, well, in any case, I don't remember, and maybe you'll be able to tell me, but a member of a board of directors, they were voted in this morning, they receive how much? I'd like to know. It's written somewhere, per day of presence at a meeting of the board, of Bombardier's board, per day. How much do they receive, these people that we call independent? It's a golden independence. You can conclude what you will, but that must not express itself very strongly to oppose decisions made by the senior management of the board. Well, you know what I'd like to say and what I'm saying about this, but I'd like to invite all of us to be careful. And you're not among the worst at Bombardier. But with regards to this exorbitant pay that should be part of our collective reflection and of our decisions about everything eventually. So that is what I wanted to say about that part of one of our motions. I read your response very carefully, but I'd like for someone to tell me, sometimes you say the members of the board are independent, those who are on the board of directors. Please remind me how much they receive per day of presence to attend these meetings of your board of directors. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Daou. And the third motion? Willie Gagnon. I'm back at the microphone for MEDAC once again. Independence of advisors in terms of compensation. What is the importance of compensation paid to managers with regards to society? They have a strategic role with the Remuneration Committee to help them to set compensation of senior management. We can think that an advisor in compensation whose fees come from a few clients might be influenced by his important clients to justify their expectations in terms of compensation. And we move that this information be disclosed so that the shareholders can be assured that the work in compensation advisors be objective without conflict of interest. What we're afraid of is that if an advisor receives most of his fees from his activities with you, he might be tempted to try and please you rather than try to do his job. So we would like to know what is the percentage of what he receives from you compared to what he receives as a whole to make a living. So, in other words, I will make the formal filing of these three motions, and I will ask Mr. Daou to support them if that is his intention. Thank you. So the motion was moved. Mr. Daou, do you want to second them? He said yes. Well, thank you for since the motion was made and seconded with all three motions of the MEDAC, I'm asking Mr. Cal to hold the electronic vote. So each of these three motions will be voted on by electronic vote according to the conditions mentioned earlier. In the case of each shareholder motion, you must press on button 1 if you agree, or on button 2 if you are opposed. The vote is open on the first motion of MEDAC. Voting is now closed. Vote is now open on the second motion by MEDAC. Voting is now closed. Vote is now open on the third motion of the MEDAC. Voting is now closed. These are the results. I observe that a majority of votes expressed were against each of these three motions of shareholders belonging to MEDAC, so each motion is rejected. Now I'd like to invite the chairman of the board of Bombardier, Mr. Pierre Baudouin, to give his presentation. He will be followed by Mr. André Navarry, chairman of Bombardier Transport, and Guy Haché, manager of Bombardier Aeronautics.
Bonjour et merci.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today in person through the web. We're here today to present the achievements and results from the last fiscal year and the first quarter of 2012, and to answer your questions. I will draw an overall picture while the group presidents, Guy Haché and André Navarry, will speak to you more specifically about their respective group activities. First, I invite you to view the following video.
Evolution. At its core, it's taking one step forward, and then another. Like leaving your car behind and stepping on board a train or a plane. It's a small step, but it matters, because evolution is not about grandiose dreams that never see the light of day. It's about moving ahead with a clear understanding of the needs of tomorrow. It's about actually taking that one single step forward. Step by step, mile by mile, city by city, country by country. The evolution of mobility is about creating better ways to move the world, transforming how millions of people get around every day by train and by plane. It's about taking the lead and delivering, mobilizing the future in more than 60 countries, investing in communities around the globe to break new ground. After all, the evolution of mobility is all about what's next.
Sorry, a technical glitch here. The video you've just watched illustrates our new promise. The promise Bombardier is making to you, its shareholders, and to all its stakeholders. The evolution of mobility, here's a promise that engages us and drives us to innovate. One that encourages our employees to surpass themselves. These words capture the essence of what we do every day. We create better ways to move the world, regardless of the global economic context. You know, this context, as you know, fluctuates from one region of the world to the next, and a considerable capacity to adapt is therefore a must. On the one hand, we've witnessed the growth of emerging economies and the American economic recovery. On the other, we're seeing continued economic turmoil in Europe and political instability in the Middle East. What's important at all times is to adapt in order to seize growth opportunities, since the need for innovative mobility solutions are there. At Bombardier, we're demonstrating our capacity to adapt by offering products that are perfectly in step with current worldwide trends, and our capacity to act as a local player everywhere we operate. Ingenuity and perseverance in our execution enabled us to deliver good financial results in 2011, with increased revenues, net income and earnings per share, reflecting our diversified portfolio of top-choice products and our growing global presence. Our consolidated revenues totaled $18.3 billion compared to $17.9 billion for the previous fiscal year, and we posted earnings per share of 47 cents, up from 42 cents last year, with only 11 months of Bombardier Aerospace revenues taken into account due to the change in the end date of our fiscal year from January 31st to December 31st. We posted a solid earnings before interest and taxes of $1.2 billion, and our cash position of $3.4 billion served to increase our liquidities to $4.1 billion. Our solid backlog of $53.9 billion as of December 31st, 2011 gives us a good visibility of our future revenues and constitutes our best protection against economic volatility. Also confirming our strong position was the continued full confidence of the banks in our capacity to realize our business plan. We renewed our credit facility at $750 million, and we've doubled the number of banks involved. As well, we've renewed our letter of credit facilities without a guarantee, thus freeing up $705 million to increase our liquidity. More recently, we secured a renewable line of credit of 500 million euros for Bombardier Transportation and issued $500 million in notes, all at competitive rates and with no guarantee. A few words about our markets. With globalization, air transportation, more than ever, is a reality of modern life. Civil aviation is a growing sector. Our market for business aircraft has grown increasingly vigorous, while the market for commercial aircraft has increased, particularly in emerging countries. For the 8th consecutive year, we led the business aircraft market, this time with a 30% market share, a 2% increase over 2010. A more difficult year than expected for our commercial aircraft prompted us to build a stronger sales team in emerging countries, a measure that has begun to bear fruit. Important stages were also completed in the development of our new aircraft programs. Guy Haché will discuss this further. But first, I'd like to say a few words about the C-Series program, which has been the subject of considerable discussion. Some important milestones were achieved this year, including the validation of the aerodynamic design and energy efficiency of the aircraft, and the signing of an agreement with the Chinese aircraft manufacturer COMAC on a long-term strategic collaboration based on the complementary nature of our aircraft and our expertise. With an entry into service in late 2013, we have a backlog equivalent to 2.5 years of production with more than 300 commitments, including 138 firm orders and 11 clients from all over the world. Having detractors at this time is perfectly normal. The same skepticism surrounding the launch of the CRJ jet, which went on to revolutionize regional transportation and become the most successful aircraft program in the history of regional aviation. In 25 years, we successfully launched 28 aircraft programs, thus consolidating our ability to assess world trends and anticipate needs. In my view, there is no doubt that the C-Series program has a promising future. In the 100 to 149 seat aircraft niche, we're still the only manufacturer offering carriers what they want: an optimized plane that ensures they'll be able to significantly reduce their operating costs. Our C-Series aircraft will be the environmentally responsible and most cost-efficient in their market niche, reducing cash operating costs by 15% and fuel burn by 20%. Their operating costs will also be 12% lower than those of future re-motorized derivative aircrafts. In a sector with such weak margins, can airlines really afford to pass up these advantages? As the most environmentally responsible mode of transportation, rail transportation continues to expand. Bombardier Transportation is well positioned to meet growing challenges related to the environment, accelerated urbanization, obsolete and saturated networks, and crumbling or non-existent infrastructures. As a world leader in the sector, Bombardier is meeting global demand for rail transportation solutions that are advanced, environmentally responsible, and optimized thanks to its international presence and its portfolio of innovative solutions, the most comprehensive and modern in the industry. Bombardier Transportation posted an improved financial performance in 2011, closing the year with a very solid backlog of 31.9 billion, which represents more than 3 years of revenue. Its employees are intensifying their efforts, since only flawless execution will enable them to meet their profitability objectives of 8% by 2013. Let's talk about the future now. The year 2012 promises to be especially exciting, highlighted by the maiden flight of the C-Series aircraft. We must continue practicing financial discipline by closely monitoring the generation of free cash flow and building profitability. And we will achieve this by taking advantage of our assets, our expertise in the area of complex project management, our continuous improvement programs, and our global presence reinforced by local routes. The long-term prospects are excellent for our two groups, since globalization and urbanization have made sustainable mobility a priority issue. More and more people are traveling who want access to transportation that is faster, more intelligent, more reliable, more comfortable, more environmentally responsible, and more productive. As a world leader in transportation solutions, we are well positioned to seize opportunities for growth, to occupy a leadership position in the evolution of mobility. Bombardier is the only company in the world that leads in both rail transportation and aerospace. And this dual perspective gives us a major competitive advantage. to maintain this leadership position and create even greater value for our clients and shareholders, we've recentered our strategic framework around 3 growth strategies. First, by investing in leading mobility solutions. Second, by growing local roots in key markets. And third, achieving flawless execution every step of the way. To achieve this, we will draw on our 4 main competitive strengths: great talent globally, strong financial discipline, active risk management, and finally, a commitment to corporate social responsibility. Our first strategy, investing in leading mobility solutions. Since energy is the key to sustainable development, improving energy efficiency in order to reduce operating costs and emissions is a priority. Here are a few examples. Our CRJ 1000, optimized for regional transportation, offers operating costs up to 15% lower than those of the competition. Our Global 7000 and Global 8000 business aircraft will have fuel burn that is 14 to 18% lower than those of Global 6000 aircraft. Thanks to our Eco4 technology, our Zafiro very high-speed trains offer the lowest energy consumption per seat of any VHS train. Our second strategy, growing local roots in key markets. With a strong presence in our target growth markets, we leverage the expertise of local employees and local suppliers to better understand these markets and to be better able to take advantage of growth opportunities. Our goal is not just to secure 1 or 2 contracts, but to become the local partner of choice over the long term. Investing in a plant and a local team in India and Brazil enabled us to further increase our competitive advantage and play an essential long-term role in their fast-growing passenger rail market in full development. At the same time, our partnership strategy with COMAC and AVIC will enable us to improve our understanding of the Chinese aerospace market. Our third strategy, achieve flawless execution every step of the way. That's exactly what we do, for example, when we modernize the metros in Madrid, Spain, and in Shenzhen, China, with our CityFlow 650 signaling solution, without interrupting service or obstructing users, or when we exceed our clients' reliability and performance expectations for our CRJ 1000 next-gen aircraft in terms of reliability and performance. Let's now turn to the financial results of the first quarter 2012 published this morning. As anticipated, our revenues were lower at $3.5 billion compared to $4.7 billion for the first quarter last fiscal year. Despite lower revenues, we were able to contain our costs, resulting in a net income of $190 million, or 10 cents per share, compared to $220 million, or 12 cents per share last year. The order backlog reached $55.2 billion as of March 31, 2012, compared to $53.9 billion as of December 31, 2011. During this first quarter, we received a good level of orders at Bombardier Aerospace for commercial as well as business aircraft. And now Guy will say more on that. Now, as for Bombardier Transportation, we are preferred bidders for 2 important contracts in the United States, which will be covered by André in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, transportation is a vital economic and social engine. Bombardier has been investing in groundbreaking technology for 70 years, and we're more determined than ever to successfully create better ways to move the world. Bombardier is a solid, competitive company with bright prospects for profitable growth. We have excellent employees. We design, manufacture, and offer exceptional products and services that are in demand on markets because they're more cost-effective and more eco-friendly. With optimism and confidence, therefore, we pursue our investments to be even more competitive and to be a very different company in 5 years, with an even more exciting new product and service and increased revenues from emerging markets, ultimately to continue creating value for our shareholders. In closing, I'd like to thank our employees whose growing commitment and dedication are a source of great pride, as well as our directors for their sage advice. I'd also like to extend a personal thanks to Janine Bombardier, now our Director Emeritus. Janine is leaving our board of directors after contributing to the company's development for more than 30 years. Thank you.
Allow me also to congratulate Madame Bissonnette and Madame Fraser for their nomination. Their experience and skills will be precious for us. And so, thanks to you, the shareholders, for your support and confidence in our success and the evolution of mobility is all about what's next, and you can count on my unwavering determination to continue on our course of creating value. Thank you for your attention, and now I'll turn it over to André Navarry, President and Chief Operating Officer of Bombardier Transport. Thank you, Pierre. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled to be here today to speak to you about Bombardier Transportation, a world leader in the rail technology sector. We offer the most comprehensive portfolio of products and services, from locomotives, light rail vehicles, metro cars, and trains for urban, suburban, or intercity use, to propulsion and control systems, and refurbishment and maintenance services. Our passion is to transform how millions of people get around by train every day. We are setting new standards for sustainable mobility. We're optimizing capacity on existing rail networks and developing new railways. With demographic growth and massive urbanization, rising fuel prices, and the growing concern with climate change, more and more people worldwide are turning to rail transportation. A number of Western countries have invested significantly in rail transportation as part of their economic recovery plan. After a record number of orders in 2010, orders remained high in Europe, the world's largest rail market, even during periods of budget constraints. Emerging countries, for their part, represent new growth areas for the rail market. Globalization, progressive market liberalization, and the emergence of new players increase competition, and they pose a constant challenge to our capacity to adapt. In 2011, we reaffirmed our position as world leader through further growth, penetrating new market segments, building our local production capacity, and stepping up our service activities and generating solid results. Our revenues totaled $9.8 billion, and our profitability stayed at a record level of 7.2% for a second consecutive year. Our liquidities were affected last year by 3 specific projects, one in France, a second in Germany, and a third in Sweden, but the situation is gradually returning to normal. Not only did we find solutions, we learned valuable lessons to take the necessary measures. Our leading-edge technology attracted $9.7 billion in new orders across all market segments and in every geographical region. These orders speak to the continued confidence of our clients and to our global competitiveness. These technologies also enabled us to close out the year with a very solid backlog of $31.9 billion as of December 31st, 2011, with a strong potential for additional orders owing to the options attached. And with over 3 years of revenues, this backlog gives us good visibility on its eventual profitability. Our purpose is the evolution of mobility by rail, and since an image is worth 1,000 words, allow me to give you 3 innovative examples to illustrate what I'm saying. Our double-deck Regio 2N train in France, our Innovia 300 monorail in Brazil, and our CBTC signaling system in the United Kingdom. The all-new Regio 2N train platform reinvents a double-deck train. It offers space and comfort to passengers while meeting the requirements of modularity, accessibility, and energy consumption of the Région Française. Several versions adapted to suburban or intercity services are available, including a version that runs at 200 kilometers per hour. With its Eco4 technology, permanent magnet motors, and driver assistance system, the Regio 2N offers a much lower energy consumption. My second example concerns the Innovia 300 monorail system. Its large capacity version can move up to 500,000 passengers per day, which is on par with leading metro systems. This system is inexpensive to set up and requires no major infrastructure or civil engineering work. Delivered with our CityFlow 650 automatic train control system, it will soon offer Sao Paulo frequent, safe, and reliable service over 24 kilometers. We recently inaugurated our global production center for monorail in Hortolândia near Sao Paulo, thus consolidating our long-standing local ties in the rapidly evolving Brazilian market. My third example concerns the London Underground, one of the world's busiest metro systems. We have shown that our CityFlow 650 communication-based train control system can considerably increase capacity and quality of service, and 26 systems are already in operation or on their way to being operational. We will install it on 4 London Metro lines, which represent 40% of the network, with 1.3 million users per day. That's a tall order when you consider that the London Underground will mark its 150th year of operation next year, and that it was built during successive phases using different signaling systems. Once the installations are complete, the system will increase capacity from 35 to 65%, and the London Underground will enjoy financial advantages in the order of $300 million per year through a reduction in costs coupled with a rise in ridership. These achievements are proof of the importance of our continuous improvement programs, such as our Operational Excellence, BOS, and our Project Management Initiative, PRO. The rail market is very solid. It is very solid and also strategic, and it's too strategic not to remain a priority in government budgets, given the rising number of passengers opting for rail travel. Therefore, we look to the future with optimism and pragmatism, as our innovative, cost-optimized solutions will satisfy the profitability requirements of operators while meeting passengers' requirements related to comfort, speed, and productivity. In the short term, the market will benefit from the influx of several major rolling stock projects, some of which are already at an advanced stage of discussion. Europe's aging trams, metros, and trains, 30% of which are more than 30 years old, are frequently packed, networks are saturated, and infrastructures are ancient. Now, under these circumstances, public authorities are that much more intent on moving forward with projects that optimize, modernize, or extend their existing railway networks. The North American market is also active. We're waiting for the go-ahead to start production of metro cars for New York City, and we're very confident that we will secure the contract for San Francisco as well. Emerging countries are investing massively in energy-efficient rail transportation solutions to reduce traffic congestion and pollution in their megacities. India has invested mainly in metros and locomotives, while China is investing in metros and intercity transportation. In Brazil, the next Olympic Games and the World Cup of Soccer will require intermodal transportation infrastructures to facilitate access to sites. The market for transportation systems are also hold promise, driven by the need for monorails in Brazil, demand in India, and the market for airport shuttles spurred by airport expansion projects. The market for signaling systems is very dynamic. To optimize many infrastructures in developed countries, older signaling systems must be replaced, and new infrastructures in emerging countries must be equipped with these new systems as well. And finally, the services market is influenced by the rolling stock market and the continued market liberalization, which favors combined offers of stock and services. In the medium and long term, urbanization and increased need for sustainable mobility, rising fuel prices, and climate change will continue to drive the demand for high-speed urban, suburban, and intercity rail networks connecting large cities. Bombardier Transportation intends to remain the driving force behind the evolution of mobility by rail in the 21st century. And we have the assets to achieve that, including our outstanding employees, whose commendable creativity and perseverance I would like to salute, our unique portfolio of innovative technologies, of safe and comfortable vehicles, which offer close to zero emissions and are almost completely recyclable, and our services designed to meet all requirements. And finally, our combination of global experience and local knowledge. 62 production and engineering sites in 25 countries enable us to make the most of our best practices and to find the specific mobility solutions best suited to secure tenders all over the world and therefore sustain our growth. Let us turn to our first quarter results for 2012. Our revenues amounted to $2 billion and our EBIT totaled $124 million. Our order backlog totaled $31.9 billion as of March 31st, 2012. Ladies and gentlemen, the passenger rail transportation market holds great promise, and I know that Bombardier is extremely well positioned to remain at the forefront and to play an important role in the evolution of mobility by rail. As the leader in most market segments, we have secured more orders than our competitors in the last 3 years. What better proof of our competitiveness is there? We have more than 100,000 vehicles in service in the world. If you've ever taken the tram in Brussels, the metro in Delhi, the air train at JFK International Airport in New York City, or a high-speed train in China, chances are very good you are riding aboard a Bombardier product. Our products run 24/7, and they've transformed the way millions of people travel every day. Our efforts remain squarely focused on flawless execution and client satisfaction for purposes of creating value for our shareholders. Thank you for your attention, and I now turn over the floor to Guy Haché, President and Chief Operating Officer of Bombardier Aerospace.
Merci, André.
Thank you, André. Dear membership team members, shareholders, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. During his overview of the group's activities, Pierre highlighted some of the Bombardier Aerospace achievements. He accurately noted the evolution of the C-Series aircraft order book. There's a potential of more than 300 aircraft if we add up the firm orders, options, and letters of intent. Pierre also mentioned that we maintained our position as world leader in business aviation for the 8th year running. We're extremely pleased about this as well. Overall, we posted solid results in 2011, and we are well positioned for the future. At Bombardier, we are driven by a strong desire to keep moving forward, being an innovative manufacturer while ensuring the evolution of mobility. This also means seizing investment opportunities in our key markets. And so, in 2011, while our traditional markets, Europe and the US, continued to face challenges, we continued our expansion into emerging countries. We doubled our commercial aircraft sales force with a very clear focus on emerging countries. We opened regional sales office in Shanghai, Dubai, and Singapore, in addition to the teams we already had in place in Munich, Sydney, and Mumbai. The results were quick to materialize. We've already recorded 110 commercial aircraft orders, options, and commitments since the beginning of this year. We also doubled the number of regional support offices for our business aircraft customers, adding locations in Singapore, Sao Paulo, and Sydney. Now, let's take a look at our 2011 results. During the 11th-month fiscal year ended December 31st, 2011, Bombardier Aerospace delivered 245 aircraft, which is in line with the objective of delivering 240 aircraft that we announced in February 2011. The business aircraft-commercial aircraft mix was, however, different from our forecast. We also received 249 orders, 48 more than in the previous fiscal year. Bombardier Aerospace has therefore put in a solid performance. On our business aircraft side, our large aircraft segment performed very well. Deliveries and orders were up. In 11 months, 163 jets were delivered and 191 ordered, a significant increase of 78% compared with the previous year's orders. The success of the global family of jets is undeniable. Case in point, a historic firm order from NetJets for 50 aircraft with an option on 70 more. For a number of reasons, the situation has been more difficult for commercial aircraft. Economic uncertainty in our traditional markets, increased competition, higher fuel costs, bankruptcies, and troubled times among regional airlines, upward pressure on costs coupled with downward pressure on prices. In the end, we delivered 78 commercial aircraft in 11 months, that's 33 CRJ and 44 Q400 Next Gen. During the previous year, we delivered 97 commercial aircraft. We received 54 orders compared with 93 a year earlier. In the commercial aircraft sector, our clients all seem to be following the same motto: caution. But there's one fact that remains indisputable. With our excellent products and our engaged sales force, we will conquer new markets. In the 100 to 149 seat segment, we anticipate 7,000 deliveries in the next 20 years. Half of these deliveries will be aircraft replacements, and the other half will be fleet increases in order to respond to a rise in the number of travelers. That market is on the verge of blossoming and represents $424 billion in sales. We expect to capture half of the market because we are entering this segment with the brand new, optimized product. All new, no compromise. The C-Series family of aircraft will be the benchmark, be it in terms of operating costs, range, fuel consumption, or noise reduction. It will create a new paradigm, just as low-cost carriers transformed the air transportation market in the last quarter of the 20th century, just like we transformed regional aviation with the CRJ jet. The C-Series is already the aircraft of choice of large air carriers such as Lufthansa and Korean Air, of national carriers such as Sweden's Malmö Aviation, of giant players in the operating lease sector such as Lease Corporation International, of private air, a private charter services company whose planes will be delivered in an exclusive business configuration, and of specialized carriers serving city center airports. The diversity of our clientele illustrates the flexibility of this aircraft, the only one that has the range to complete long routes and the agility to land on the short runways of regional airports. The C-Series aircraft program is on track to meeting performance targets. The wind tunnel tests have been completed. The fuselage has undergone some 180,000 cycles. The engines have been subjected to more than 1,300 hours of flight testing. The first series of system tests and simulations have begun on aircraft 0, and more than 200 components and systems are being tested around the world. The Saint-Laurent plant, where the cockpit and the rear fuselage are to be manufactured, have been renovated. We are in the process of expanding the Mirabel plant, where final assembly will be carried out, and the composite wing parts are in production at our new facilities in Belfast. We are driving towards an entry into service at the end of 2013, and we believe that the C-Series family of aircraft will be a game changer in its segment. We are also developing other programs in the business aircraft sector that are equally as exciting. The Global 7000 and 8000 twin reactor jet programs is on course. In 2011, we announced that the aft fuselage would be manufactured in Querétaro, final assembly would be carried out in Toronto, and interior completion in Montreal. We are also maintaining the objective of a 2013 entry into service for the Learjet 85 aircraft program. The design is completed, and we are entering into the manufacturing and validation phase. We are currently making investments in our Querétaro, Belfast, and Wichita plants. These new aircraft will help us maintain our position as the world leader in business aviation. We are very proud of our new Vision flight deck, which entered into service as planned in March aboard a Global 5000 jet delivered to Formula One champion Niki Lauda. This futuristic flight deck will further contribute to the success of our business aircraft. To support our development programs, over the course of the last year, we also announced the construction of a new plant in Morocco. It will assist our other plants. Our financial performance was good. Our revenues totaled $8.6 billion, a very slight decrease of 2.4%. The earnings before interest and taxes was $502 million, or 5.8% of revenue, compared to 6.3% for the previous year. Our backlog increased significantly, growing from 19.2 to 22 billion. At Bombardier Aerospace, our future looks bright. Despite some challenges, we're expecting the business aircraft sector to trend upward in 2012, and that caution will continue in the commercial aircraft sector. The year has got off to a good start, with orders from Europe and from emerging markets, despite the ongoing economic uncertainty. Private Air has placed a firm order for 5 C-Series aircraft with options on 5 more. PT Garuda of Indonesia has ordered 6 CRJ-1000 next-gen regional jets with an option on an additional 18, a firm order worth close to $300 million that could increase to over $1.3 billion. Rwanda Air has signed a firm order for 2 CRJ-900 next-gen regional jets and took options on 2 others. Eurolot has ordered 8 Q400 next-gen turboprops with options on 12 more, while Ethiopian Airlines has ordered 5 and Horizon Air 2. On May 1st, we were very pleased to learn that WestJet had selected Bombardier for the acquisition of up to 45 Q400 next-gen turboprops. This is the phase that precedes a firm order, and we look forward to finalizing this purchasing process with WestJet. We posted 40 orders for business aircraft in the first quarter. There was a temporary slowdown in deliveries while we finalized our new Vision flight deck for global aircraft. But we will quickly get back to traditional levels now that this new flight deck has entered into service. For commercial aircraft, the decline in deliveries is, amongst other things, due to the reduced production rate and to issues stemming from the timing of financial availability for one of our customers. In terms of results, our first quarter revenues total $1.5 billion with earnings before interest and taxes of $91 million. That's a 6.1% margin. The backlog has grown to $23.3 billion, a 6% increase when compared with the value at December 31st, 2011. We are maintaining our objective of a 5% EBIT margin for the year ending December 31st, 2012, at the end of which we expect to have delivered approximately 180 business aircraft and 55 commercial aircraft. To summarize, we played our cards well in 2011. We strengthened our position in emerging markets. We moved ahead as planned in our development programs, and we maintained our financial stability. I must congratulate our employees for their persistence. They are proud to work for Bombardier Aerospace, and we are proud to work with them and to take our place on the world stage. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I am now pleased to answer your questions or to receive your comments. Please state your name and mention if you are a shareholder or if you hold a proxy. Mr. Chairman? The light's in my eye. I can't see you. We need to have a light at the microphone, please. Could we turn the house lights on, please? That's better. Mr.
Winston Reevy, I am a shareholder. I have a question about the castings that were delivered to the Chicago Transit Authority that we heard about during the year. Do you feel that there is a generalized lesson to be learned there from that experience about, first of all, the oversight that's required when contracting out, and secondly, about specifications for acceptance at the point of handover before delivery takes place? So do you have any comment on this aspect of the management system that needs to be in place?
Andre?
Interesting issues that we have for the Chicago Transit with the Chicago Transit Authority when we deliver metro subway cars. We have identified this issue with the customer. It has been put under control, and now it has been corrected. So we have taken the lesson learned in order to reinforce the control. Now the trains have been put back in service, and I think this problem is solved.
Thank you.
À l'arrière.
At the back, Mr. Chairman, Willie Gagnon for MEDAC. I have in my hand a press clipping titled Free Trade with Europe. Bombardier preaches being careful. That comes from the La Presse newspaper. Bombardier Transportation is reluctant with the free trade agreement with the European Union, I'm reading here. And beginning of quote, a free trade project, no matter what it is, be balanced. It has reciprocity, has declared the chairman of Bombardier Transportation, André Navary, after making a speech before the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Montreal. If it is not two-way, someone will lose, and I would not be in favor of protectionism per se, but we have to be careful. We need to have all the information in the equation, end of quote. Now, on the Buy America Act, this is still Mr. Navarri. If the free trade contracts allow manufacturers in the U.S. to sell in Canada, whereas if we want to sell in the U.S. and we go up against Buy America, what is the interest of free trade? We have to be careful. Okay. Are you for or against free trade? Do you participate in negotiations of this economic and commercial global Canada-Europe agreement? I have to notice that there is the brother of one of the members of the board who is an active participant in these negotiations. So I would like to have a bit more detail on this, please. Mr. Navarri? Yes. Well, I will refer you to the interview I gave 2 days ago. I simply mentioned that, of course, free trade is part of something that everyone wishes, because free trade allows movement of knowledge and products. But it has to be win-win. Both countries and both industries have to be properly treated by the competition. And I gave the simple example of the situation between Canada and the US, where it is true that our Canadian units, when they have problems selling in the US, because in the US, and it's not up to me to judge it, have decided to vote the Buy America Act so that 60% of content of what we sell in the U.S. must come from the U.S. So what I said from that is that if there's no reciprocity, that means that someone, a manufacturer, wherever he is in the U.S., he can sell from the U.S. into Canada without any barriers from Canada, and reciprocity is not true for our Canadian units. So it's simply an observation. I stated a fact. Sorry, but has Bombardier done any political actions? Have they lobbied to correct that situation? Well, we were asked to comment on the negotiating clauses, comments similar to what Mr. Navarri has just mentioned. So you're not participating directly in the negotiations. You just make comments. Well, I think the government, when it negotiates free trade agreements, it wants to know what businesses that will be impacted think, and they asked us for our comments. So you're not involved? No, we're not involved in those negotiations. Thank you. My name is Jean Saint-Pierre. I'm a shareholder of Bombardier. My question is for Mr. Pierre Baudouin, the chairman, as well as senior managers. In La Presse, dated April 28th, written by Michel Girard, an article titled Gluttons Among Senior Managers. Mr. Baudouin got $8.2 million this year, an increase of 16%. Whereas the stock price went down 17%. If we look at today's papers, it's down even more. So there was a suggestion and a recommendation that would be fair among all of us who are shareholders. You mentioned that earlier. You thanked us for being here, which would be the key factor. Compensation of senior managers should take into account the value of stock, including dividends, in the 24 months preceding the meeting. So my question is, do you intend now or in the future to comply to this recommendation that is quite logical and that would benefit all the people here, your shareholders who allow your company to exist? Well, maybe I could ask our chairman of the Compensation Committee, Mr. Monti, to respond to that question. Well, I would ask Mr. Pierre Baudouin, the chairman, to respond. Well, I can respond, but it's not my role to talk about my own compensation. What we ask our compensation committee is to make sure that we have a compensation system that is competitive, to allow us to find the best managers possible, to allow us to be competitive in the world. You need to understand that we have a business that is global in scale. We need to have the best managers. That's why we need a compensation system that is competitive. But your compensation as senior managers, you are among the highest, and your share price and dividends you haven't paid for years. You have the lowest dividend. Look at the list of all shares in the market. You are paying the lowest dividend. However, in terms of compensation, you are amongst the best compensated. As I told you, compensation of our managers, including myself, is set by our compensation committee to be competitive. As far as the share price and dividend, we have the same objective as you, to have our share price go up in a context where we have long-term investments. Some of these investments take a few years before starting to bear fruit. So what you are telling me is that you don't intend to implement this recommendation. What we intend to do is to continue to ask our compensation committee with our consultants to make sure that we have a process to have competitive compensation. Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions or comments, the question period is now closed. 1 minute, please. Mr. Daou, I don't need to repeat the full admiration that we have here collectively here in Quebec for this company, which you are collectively leading, you as members of the board of directors. There is a small concern which is reflected in the fact that your company has not succeeded in obtaining a franchisation certificate. You have all the certificates that are indispensable, and I do not want to draw any analogies here. I do not want people to say, here we go again, language. But a certificate of franchisation is indispensable and is set in law. It is not a claim from simply a few groups here and there. The law has been voted in 1977. 2012, it is now 35 years. Bombardier has no such certificate. I know your union. I know the members of the franchisation committee in your company. They say a lot of good, and be said in passing. They are well aware, since they participate in negotiations, transactions, discussions on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis, with Bombardier management. I won't be very long. There is surely little to be done. I've inquired as recently as yesterday. There's really not much to be done, and that would require for the Office québécois de la langue française to take into consideration certain particularities. There are already agreements in place. They take into account the particularities of your sector, economic sector, within this huge industrial sector which is yours. And here, I do not want to praise you, but it is strange in Quebec that most companies in the aerospace industry do not have a franchisation certificate. Most, if not almost all of them. Now, I shouldn't tell you that because that will then make you feel secure and saying, well, we're not the worst, we're not the only ones. But assume a leadership role in this area would be fantastic. It would be unbelievable. Within a few months, there will be a summit of people concerned with the linguistic problems of the French language. There will be representatives from countries where French is spoken. I won't give you all the details. It would be extraordinary to be able to say, finally, the important company, which is Bombardier, which is a company that excels in all areas, which, with regards to the French language, excels as well, except that it does not have this darn document. So I am not the spokesperson of your union, which you know well. I am 1751, and this is a union that has been in place for I don't know how many years. It used to be with Canadair, now with Bombardier. But please, I beg of you, take a little step forward and go and see l'Office de la Langue Française, do it jointly with the union. And for this World Summit, we will then be able to announce that Bombardier, which excels in all areas, it has now become a model in this area. I would like that so much. Thank you for your comments. I can assure you that it is a priority for us. We have doubled our efforts. Now we have fulfilled 8 of the 9 steps required for this certificate for the French language. But we need to understand that we're speaking of Bombardier. We're in a field where the working language is often English. You've acknowledged that yourself, that it's a situation among our suppliers or competitors. But for Bombardier, it is a priority. We have taken a long time getting there, but we have now fulfilled 8 of the 9 requirements, and we feel we'll be able to obtain our certificate soon. Thank you. Is there anything else to be brought to the meeting? Otherwise, we have come to the end of this meeting. I would like someone to move the closing of the assembly. Mr. President, my name is Pierre Filiatro. I'm a shareholder of Bombardier. Hereby move that the assembly be adjourned. Thank you. I'm convinced that there are no objections. We do not need an electronic vote for that. Do you all agree? Thank you.